Hey Sweetlifers, welcome to our revamped YouTube. We're going to start doing more of these maybe like once a week to see if we can get some more long content out there because I just find you get more out of it. So today what we're going to do is we are going to be repotting one of my favorite plants. This is a Philodendron billietiae variegated. I've had it for years and years and years. It's been cut a few times and we put it on this moss pole maybe like year and a half to 2 years ago. Actually, it's probably longer than that, maybe even 3 years. And it's a moss pole that I made a long time ago. I've found moss poles that work better, just giving more access to the air roots, more access to the sphagnum moss for the air roots. And yeah, so we're gonna go and we're going to repot this guy. Now, another reason why he needs to be repot is because the soil, the quality of the soil has sort of like gone down. So you can have spent soil. That's just where your plant has taken everything it can and all the nutrients it can out of the soil. Now, yes, I fertilize regularly. And yes, I use a fairly high quality soil, but if this guy's been in there for 3 years, it's well overdue for a repot. And I'm sure the roots might even be suffering a little bit because I've waited so long. So, poor plant, kiss you better. We will make you happy again. So that's what we're gonna do today. And so our soil is actually like, we're gonna be using the same mix, but this soil here has actually sort of separated out. So all the light stuff came to the top, all the heavy stuff came to the bottom. So you've got a lot of bark at the top, and at the bottom, I guarantee it's all like spent cocoa coir, where there could even be fertilizer like building up in the bottom. So after 3 years, I'm super lazy when it comes to my plants, but this should have probably been repotted at least 1.5 years ago. But we're going to make up for our delinquency and we're going to put it on a new moss pole. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. First things first, we switched moss pole products. So if you go back in my Instagram, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you're going to find one where I used a plastic mesh, some moss, and something to keep it stable in the middle. And then we would wrap it up and we would use zip ties. Well, we're not gonna do that anymore. We found something that's just, it's a little more sustainable and it's a little more, we can tailor it. So we get these, they come as sheets off of, you know, Amazon, as much as I hate to use Amazon. But the great thing about these is that, yes, they're plastic, but one of the problems we have with our moss poles is that the moss poles do start to, like the sphagnum moss starts to like deteriorate and fall apart. Also, that plastic mesh is just as bad as this stuff. So, ethics aside, we just think that using this is, a better way to do things. Now there are 2 ways you can do it. We do it where we, so you fold them along the creases and then you put them together. There's these slots that go together and they're all up along and down the bottom. But we previously had moss in this one. As you can see, we've reused it. So I'm just gonna pop the moss that I used back in here. It's all sort of together as a clump, but it's fine. Normally we would just stuff these afterwards, and stuffing them, you have to watch out because the plastic can be quite sharp. So just make sure that you know to watch out for the edges. So we do fill up the moss all the way to the top, but we leave a gap at the bottom, and that gap is actually going to go in the pot and we're going to fill it up with soil, just so that there is some consistency and stability in how we're going to pot up our plant in this moss pole. So I'm going to actually go like this, and I'm going to, I don't go on the smallest one, but the second smallest one, just because it gives really nice flat space at the front for us to kind of have to wait until it snaps in. And if you do have like really weak EDS fingers like I do, then it just might take a little extra effort to get this together. Or you phone a friend. I had Velta put some of these together and she just let's just say moss pools aren't her thing. I do all the moss pools now. It was too hard. She cut her fingers up, and I've learned a technique where that doesn't necessarily happen. All right, so here is our moss pool. Something else that's really cool about these moss pools is that you can put another one on top of it, like this one here. You can squeeze another one on top of it. And I'm just gonna leave it like that, and then I'm gonna fill in between. And as long as you've got like 2.5 to 3 inches of the top one inserted into the bottom one, then it'll be no problem at all. I'm gonna fill this with moss, and then I'm also going to put some Velcro tape around here just to make sure as an extra precaution. So give me a few seconds, I'm gonna put some moss in and we'll go from there. Handy dandy repotting bucket. So I just use the bucket here because I'm going to actually show you what the soil looks like. Normally I would just throw this soil out. I am going to throw it out because it is so old. So I'm actually going to pour it out while holding on to the billietiae by the petiole that's attached to the moss pole. All right, so it's this stuff that came off the top. I had knocked it over there. This stuff came on top, and then as you can see, it's definitely more dense at the bottom, but these roots actually don't look too bad. I'm really excited about this. Okay, so I didn't kill my lovely expensive plant, because I got this plant during the pandemic, probably in about late 2001, and she's been living her good life. But again, I haven't done as much as I could in order to keep her as healthy as possible. Bad plant parent sometimes, but you know, plant tasks, when you have as many plants as I do here, they can get a little tedious. So I'm completely owning the fact that this should have been repotted a long time ago. But I also have cut it, so it has had to go through a little bit of trauma as well, multiple times. But she's going to be beautiful once we pot her up. Now the next thing you want to do, I'm so surprised, these roots actually look really good. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see how attached it is to the old moss pole. Because if it's really, really attached, I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm going to cut the top off. Because we don't want to cause damage to the root system if we can avoid it. So taking off my Velcro that I have here. And I want to see how attached it is. So this one isn't very attached at all, except for in the root system. So I might, yeah, it was only really attached at the root system. So I'm either gonna like tease them out and hopefully it will work, because there's like a really huge root here. So if you gently pull it out, it should maintain the, yeah, look, I got my root out without even having a problem. Now the other roots that are attached in here, there's one more long one. I want to get that one out, but the small ones, they'll recover. So, not too bad overall. Not too many roots were lost in that one. And I'm gonna be throwing this guy out because the moss is pretty well spent. Like down here, it's like crunchy. There's no way air roots could have gotten through that. So we're just gonna throw this guy out. All right, and this is what we're left with. I'm probably gonna cut this off, and a few of the older roots that don't look like they're supporting new roots, I'm gonna cut those off. These have been sterilized I wiped them off with peroxide, so they are healthy, and when I move on to a next plant, I will wash them again. Okay, so I'm just cutting off some of the dead stuff, some of the stuff that doesn't look like it will help support our plant in the long run. All right, that one there, just trim it a little bit. And everything else looks like it's supporting new roots. So yes, this root looks really old, but look at how many roots it's supporting. So all of this is new root. Yay, okay, so fantastic. Clean off a space here because we are going to attach this to our moss pole next. I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but at least this way we'll have the plant situated in the way that it best fits on the moss pole. So you can see that there's air roots, one here, one here, one here, and there's not really that many in the front. Well, what I'm going to be calling the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the moss pole back where the air roots are. I might even try to like move this root in front of a petiole so that these roots can find themselves inside that moss pole. Okay. All right, so this is the most important part right here, is making sure that you still maintain that your roots are going to be at the bottom where there's the soil left over, like this space for soil that's left over. So understanding that this is the back, I'm gonna actually try to feed the air roots in without damaging them so that they have a good start to life on their new moss pole. But I also want to make sure that this here is going to be underneath the dirt because new roots can come out of here. There's no reason at all. And then these roots here can get inside the soil and they can also get in the moss pole to provide even more stability. So just taking care of the roots here. Now, I'm going to try to make sure that as much of the surface area of these air roots is touching the moss, the wet moss, because that's how it's going to stick and that's going to stay and how it's going to support itself. All right, so we've got it in there, and now I'm going to use moss, or I'm going to use Velcro to actually attach it. Now, we have seen plant people do all sorts of things when they're attaching their plant to Velcro. I'm going to show you the way that I do it. I think it's appropriate, but some people are different. They don't want to use as much Velcro, or they, for whatever reason. We all have our ways to do things. So this guy down here, I'm actually going to put this one so that it's just at the top of the soil. It's going to go right there. And I like putting the soft edge closest to the plant, just because then I'm sure there's like no damage being caused because I'm a Velcro queen. All right, so you want to put it snug, but not too tight, because you ultimately don't want to cut anything off going through the stem. All right, so we've got that sorted out now. And now I'm going to put moss in one more spot, and it's going to be a spot that's going to allow it to stay flat up against the moss pole. So you also don't want to put your Velcro where it's going to inhibit root growth, or if it's going to like damage any of your other petioles that your leaves are on. So there's a spot right here that's big enough to fit a piece of Velcro around. And now I'm going to do that, but I'm going to make sure that these petioles are out of its way. So I'm going to put it underneath the petioles. All right, so soft side down. I'm going to weave it in through the petioles. It's kind of like a big craft. And then I'm going to snug it down. Remember, tight, but not so tight that it will cut things off from the plant. And the important thing too is to make sure you go between the nodes. It's a little hard here because the internode space is so small, but we have absolutely done our best to go in between two nodes here. So I'll do a close up of this guy so you can see. He obviously doesn't need this top end of the moss pole yet, but I'm just gonna leave it there. Hopefully encourage it a little bit more. But here, this is how it's been tied up. So you can see I sort of went in between two nodes as best I could. And taped it down. Now, another option I could have had, if I was worried that the Velcro would be too thick, is to cut it in half. I didn't think I had to do it here, but you can. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pot it up. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we are going to fill this bottom part with soil as best we can. And then I'm using quite a deep pot so that it will have more, it'll be more solid at the base and won't tip over as easily. This is going to be quite heavy, so we're ultimately probably going to end up supporting the moss pole against like one of the metal poles of our shelves or something like that, just in case, because I don't want to crush my billietiae. All right, so I have some soil here. This is the pot we're actually going to use, but for now, I am just going to fill. Yep, messy, don't worry, messy, very messy. I don't 100% trust that it will get filled if I put it into a thing with soil, just because I've seen it happen before where this part doesn't get full. So it's as full as it's gonna get right now. And the next thing I wanna do is put the roots into the, I could probably even do with a bigger pot. So remember how I said I'm putting this Velcro so that it's at the top of the soil. So you want to see about half of it at the edge of the pot. And then I'm going to pick this up. And I'm going to fill the rest with soil. All right. And there we go. So it's pretty stable, like it's standing up on its own, which is fantastic. I actually wasn't expecting it to be able to do this, so I'm really glad. We have it so that we can still see our Velcro down here. So that Velcro there is still on top of the soil. And she's gonna be a lot happier. So when you water, the great thing about these moss poles versus skinnier moss poles is that the sheer volume of moss means that it's going to like hold on to water for a lot longer. We water roughly once a week, or if we see that they need it, in between. And when you water this, the first thing that's going to happen is that the soil is going to compress a little bit. So the first time anyway, you're going to want to top up the top just to keep that base stable. And then after that, it's important to keep the moss lightly moist. So this is a little more than lightly moist, but it's starting the plant's roots to go into it. So it's just like repotting, where you keep your soil just a little bit more damp than you would if you were, regularly watering something that is well established. So yes, this is well established, but it's not well established in this soil. So keep this moss pole quite damp to begin with. It can be less damp as it becomes more stabilized in the soil and the roots actually take hold. But yeah, these are really easy to water because you can just use a sprayer, or you can water them from the top. So you can water them from the top here, if there wasn't a second one, or at the top one, and it will keep the moss super wet. So yeah, that's how we're going to follow this. It would be great if you could like, follow, and follow, subscribe to our channel. How can you tell that I'm fairly new at this? Yeah, we just want to spread the message that plants are for everyone. There's no such thing as a black thumb. And I'm always open to suggestions about what you might want to see in the next YouTube video. So today we did repotting climbing aroids onto a moss pole. And I will put all of the links to these products that I get at Amazon in the comments below or in the statement below so that you will be able to find them. Again, this is the easiest, cheapest way we've found to do moss poles, and you can reuse these moss poles. So if you did want to reuse them, it's the plastic that you're reusing. Take out all of the moss that's gone yucky, replace it. Well, I would actually wash it out with like an antibacterial or an antibiological. Then I'd let it dry, and then I'd put moss in, and then I would reuse it. So these are absolutely fantastic for that. So that's all I have for you today. Follow for more plant talk, subscribe for more plant talk, and tell all your friends, because I want to make plant care easy for everyone.